This is the 2025 Volkswagen Polo GTI, part of a dying breed in a segment of internal combustion engine hot hatches. And with key rivals like the Ford Fiesta ST no longer in production, does this do enough to give you that everyday spice that you might be looking for in a combustion engine hot hatch? That's what I'm here to find out today. So I'm going to take you on a full tour of this car and get it out on the road to see what I think. But before that, if you're looking for a new car, you want to buy something used but you don't know where to start, please hit us up at Players Cars Premium in the description below, because we make car buying so easy for you. What they will do is they will source you any car that you want, even if it's not in stock, but you can communicate 24/7 via WhatsApp. Don't worry about waiting for emails during the day and all that pesky stuff. Just hit them up on the WhatsApp and you'll know exactly what's going on. Whether it's something like this or a new electric car like my Tesla, they will be able to find the exact solution for you and offer you extremely low finance as well, with plenty of options for trade-in and all that good stuff. So if you're looking for a new car, check out the links in the description below and make sure you say that I sent you. So then, looking around the Polo GTI, now this car has the EA888 engine that we've come to know and love from Volkswagen Audi Group over the last sort of 10-15 years. Very tunable engine, lots of potential and lots of different variations. In this, guys, comes with a 0 to 60 time of 6.5 seconds, 7-speed DSG gearbox and around 43.5 mpg quoted, and a power figure of around 207 horsepower. So it's a smaller turbo than what you would find on, say, a Golf R or an Audi S3 or something like that, which put out sort of closer to 310 horsepower, but it's effectively the same engine besides that. Now, the thing is, the hot hatches are a bit of a dying breed, and the ones that you will find on the market now are usually more expensive. A Civic Type R, for example, you're pushing 50k for one of those now. This one starts at 31,000, but there are some drawbacks because an i20N, which I believe is a little bit more of a hot hatch with a valved exhaust and so on, they come in at a bit less than that. So that's just something to consider. I won't go over your standard Polo, I'll just go over the GTI spec, but this comes with your Jacara red cloth and also King's red gloss dash, which I'll show you in a bit, with an option for some grey interior as well, or leather for £1,350. Unfortunately, as with Volkswagen Audi Group cars, you do tend to have a few options you need to tick to get the spec that you might want, such as £400 for keyless entry, £950 for a panoramic roof, £345 for heated seats, and reverse cam for £370. It's a shame that on this kind of high-end trim for the Polo, these things aren't included as standard. And the car that you see in front of me here is finished in white, of course, and it has the optional 18-inch alloys. The Polo GTI comes with 17s as standard. What I will say though is dynamic chassis control is standard and does make a massive difference, and also with a 1,303 kilogram curb weight, actually this is light by today's standards when it comes to hot hatch. I know that sounds crazy, but when we look at like the things like the Abarth 500e and all of the kind of electric hot hatches that are coming out, they are going to be significantly more heavy because of the battery packs. Also included as standard is a torque vectoring XDS electronic limited slip diff, which is done through software, and also 15mm lowering springs compared to the standard Polo. But with things like the Fiesta ST gone, this is kind of becoming your only option in this segment. So let's take a little look around then. I do like the front end design that they've got. So you can see you've got some daytime running lights, this Volkswagen IQ light system, which is really nice. Got some LEDs as standard up there, and there is also a light bar that runs across the front when the lights are on. And down the bottom, you do also have these kind of checkered style lights down here, which I do think really make a nice accent at the front of the car. You do have kind of these plastic inserts along with the front grille there, and I do think actually it does make it look quite sporty. Even though the Polo front end is quite soft these days, I do think that the GTI badging and the red accents and these lights down the bottom do make a difference to make it look a little bit more aggressive. You got to admire the private plate that Volkswagen have put on this car as well. Props for that. Not the most sporty exterior, but definitely the white paint helps because you can really see the black accents pop, including the black roof as well. No pan roof on this one that I've got here today, but the black accents do make a nice difference, and tinted windows are standard as well. Not standard, however, are these wheels. These are the optional 18s. I do think they look the part, and they're wrapped in Bridgestone Potenza Sports. I definitely think that these make a nice difference because the 17s don't quite look sporty enough in my opinion. You get this nice GTI accent down the side of the car, as well as also some nice lines that make it look a little bit crisp, and you can see the side profile is quite a small compact little car, but nice breadth of interior space considering. So moving round to the back, the lights make it quite sporty I think as well, which is really nice, and you do get the GTI badging, which I think makes a nice difference. There's no Polo badging on the back, and I think the fact that it's badged GTI is super important. It goes to show that it is the top end model and the sportier trim, and that red accent really helps with that. And then down the bottom you've got this kind of diffuser lip which looks really good, as well as this nice chromed sports exhaust tip, and I will show you a little bit what that sounds like as well. So overall, I think the sporty design really shows off, especially in this spec. I think this is definitely the right spec for this car. You can see as well the rear spoiler in this gloss black makes a nice difference as an accent, and that's something again that really stands out just because of the contrast here. So I'd love to know what you think. Does this kind of do enough to look sporty? I think definitely with these optional 18-inch alloys, it certainly makes a difference. And the little lips down the bottom of the car, you can see there's a little side skirt one here as well. And in this color combination, I think it definitely looks the part. But please do let me know in the comments below what you think. So let's head into the Polo. We've got keyless entry, which works nicely. And as you step in, you can see that we do have that famous kind of tartan plaid setup in here with these nice sport seats, which have really nice plush headrests. I do like them. Nice supportive and thick side bolsters. And then this really cool pattern that people have come to know from Volkswagen over the years. They are manual pump, and they also do have a manual lumbar adjustment. And I think they're super supportive and actually really nice for this size and class of car. I do like them indeed. And there are also ISOFIX points in the passenger seat over there, which is really nice. So this door, you can see we do have kind of typical Volkswagen Audi Group scratchy plastics, which is a bit of a shame, but you do have this metallic red detailing, which can be swapped out for grey if you want to, but it's nice that there's this touch to make the plastics look and feel a little bit more premium. And you have a decent sized storage bin down here, especially for this class of car. I've seen a lot of larger cars now that don't have a sort of pocket big enough for a bottle, so that's a nice touch. And you get a nice GTI door sill on here, your standard Volkswagen Audi Group pedals, and you'll notice in here the layout and the tech is very similar to that of other Volkswagens and Audis that you've seen over the last sort of 10 years or so. So let's dive in and see exactly what it's all about. So stepping inside then, I do have a cable plugged in and trailing at the moment because that's what I'm using for the Apple CarPlay, so do ignore that. But the overall size and layout is pretty impressive. For this class of car, it's not too bad at all. So I'm gonna put my foot on the brake and turn the car on with the engine start stop button down here, and we can then get a feel for exactly what's going on. So you'll see that's this section here. This is the typical Volkswagen virtual cockpit, and this is super customizable and one of the best on the market. The one thing that you will see is that you can get maps on here, and it does also integrate with your Apple CarPlay, which is nice. And there's tons and tons of different things I can do by clicking through on the wheel here. So I can adjust what's showing on this center area, and then you can also press the view button here, and that will change the entire layout, so you can have full screen maps if you want. You can also have this kind of extended view with different information at the sides, or you can go back to your standard mode here. And these center areas are also completely customizable. So if we were to go over to the main display here, this is effectively the Volkswagen system that you might have seen from many moons ago. So this is effectively a sort of 10-15-year-old system now, so it's a bit outdated and just reskinned, but it does mean that it's not quite as complex as their new systems, which is nice to some people. This really bugs me, the fact that this volume knob doesn't have that. There's actually people that make stickers to cover those, which is quite funny. But yeah, if we head to the menu, I'll show you what this looks like. Obviously Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. This one is really glossy and fingerprinty, but this one is matte and really nice. So that's just something to bear in mind. And you do have nice EQ adjustment in here and stuff like that, so there's plenty of adjustment, and it is really easy to work. It's just a bit outdated compared to like sort of modern systems on other cars and other brands now, which is a shame. There's not as much tech on here. But one thing I will say is like the assist features, so your kind of cruise control, which is here, and all that is not too bad. It doesn't have one touch lane sort of steer like Hyundais and Kias and stuff like that, which is a shame, but it does have a comprehensive set of cruise control functions here, and also it doesn't have too much intrusive kind of beeps and stuff like that. You can see the traffic sign recognition is active, and so is the speed warning, but the speed warning is really minimal. It's not terrible, and you can turn it off from this menu. So what I can do is go into the vehicle settings, and then if we go into the selection area here, you can go to digital cockpit, and then I can completely customize everything that's visible on here. So for example, you can swipe here and change this to a few different things. You can have like your consumption there on the side. You can go from range, you've got destination info, so you can see in real time as I'm changing it, it is changing over on the screen over here as well. So there's lots of different options. But aside from that, no major features in here. These are capacitive buttons on the sides, and it's nice that you do have shortcuts there. And this is a super basic system, but it works well. And I think the simplicity, even though it is outdated, I do like it. Moving on down here, you have your climate vents, and then you do have a kind of touch system for your climate control. So it does use the sliders that I don't particularly like, but you can use them as buttons if you want to. And it does also have illumination now, which is nice, so you can see what you're doing. Typically I just set this to automatic and forget about it anyway, so it's not a major gripe. You've got a wireless phone charger down here, which is a little bit small by today's standards, but it's nice that it's included. You do then have your standard gear select. Unfortunately, the sequential shifting mode is the wrong way round, as in most Volkswagen Audi groups. It should be inverted. In this it isn't, which is a real shame, but it's a very small gripe because I wouldn't use that. I would use the paddles on the steering wheel. Down here you've got auto start stop functionality and your drive mode select, which you can cycle through, which will take you through normal, sport, individual and eco. Individual you can customize to your liking, and the sport mode will firm up the suspension and the steering input and so on, and also pump some more fake noise into the cabin, which actually is quite nice. And of course the steering wheel is a blessing because Volkswagen have gone for this new style with their nice new minimalist logo, GTI badging down here, nice contrast stitching and perforation. It's kind of a D shape, like it's got bolstering here and it's got bolstering down here, so it is a little bit of a bind when you're trying to hold the steering wheel like this. Is like a bump here, but it's quite nice. It looks sporty as well, which is really cool. And physical controls, which we absolutely love. You've got volume on this side, you've got media skip on this side, and then you've got plastic paddles on the back, which have a nice action to them. They're not very premium feeling, but you know what, it doesn't really matter. It's nice to actually be able to interact with them. And you know, combustion cars, hot hatches in 2025, we love to see it. This isn't the hottest hatch out there, but the fact that there's paddles to interact with on this nice 7-speed DSG is a blessing indeed. And I do actually like this red contrast. It's kind of really nice metallic finish. I don't know if you can see it kind of popping in the sun here. It's just a nice touch. It breaks up the dashboard a little bit, and yes, it doesn't look very premium, but it also means that it's not just one big grey and black slab, which is cool. You do get a nice generously sized glove box as well, which is always handy, and then you do get some center storage here, not too much, but it's quite a deep well, and then some cup holders. These cup holders are extremely small though and don't really fit much, so I'm a little bit disappointed with those, but some people might like to see there is indeed a manual handbrake, which is really cool. So yeah, mix of materials in here. It's not the most premium cabin, but the tech is decent. It's just a shame that there's no blind spot monitoring. I think that's a bit of an oversight, and it's a shame that there's no kind of extra features like additional cameras. The reverse camera is present on this one as an option, but it is very low quality, as you can see, and there's no kind of 360 cam or front camera or anything like that, and it's a shame that this isn't included as standard as well. But it's simple. If you're coming from an older Volkswagen Audi group car, I think this will be super easy to get used to, and there's enough tech in here to keep most people happy. Then stepping into the back of the car, the door opens fairly wide, which is nice, and you do have a little bit of a door bin back here. Nothing too fancy going on in the rear of the car, but you do have this extended seat pattern, which looks the part. I absolutely love it. And you do also have a 60-40 split, which is always good for practicality. And then you do have nice big chunky Isofix points here, which are really easy to access, and they have plastic covers so you can't really damage anything whilst putting them in. Makes it super easy to put those in the car. Unfortunately, you do, as you can see, get a massive transmission hump, so it's going to be really impractical for that middle passenger unless they are a very, very small child. Nice though is you do get 2 USB-C ports back here, so charging is a bit of a breeze. And whilst legroom isn't the best, it is actually quite decent for this size of car, which I'll now demonstrate. So stepping into the Polo, I've got this seat in front of me here in my driving position, so you can see it is a little bit cramped for me at 6 foot, but it's not the end of the world. The big downside is the lack of thigh support for me back here, because I've got long gangly legs, and if you've got a third passenger in the back in this middle seat, you are going to be in a little bit of trouble, because this is one of the largest transmission humps I've seen on a car in a little while. There's literally no legroom there for that middle passenger, which is a bit of a shame, but you wouldn't expect it in a car of this class and size. What I will say is the seats themselves are super supportive on the back, which would make it nice on a longer journey. I've got some lights up here, and overall it's quite easy to get comfortable, even though I've not got so much room back here. No major adjustment, but I do also have a decent amount of headroom back here considering the size of the car, so it could be a lot worse. And then moving on to your cargo area, you get the nice Volkswagen flip badge, which is a nice classic touch and generous space really. It's quite easy to load as well. You can see there's not a major lip there, and underneath the boot floor you don't really get any storage. You've just got a spare wheel, which is fine. There's not really anything else in here, but it means that you do get a pretty level load floor and not many fancy features, but you do have a little pocket down here as well. This is nice and easy to remove, this shelf here, so I'll do that now. Literally just pop these bits off, then give it a yank, and it will just come out like that. creating a nice easy space. Of course, it isn't very easy to store that in the car, but it means that it's nice and easy to access this. And from here you can quite easily reach in and put these main seats down, and they fold super flat, creating a very usable and easy to live with space. Look at this, it's quite cavernous in here, and actually it's a really easy load area. There's no bumps and bits like that. It's just super nice and easy to load. And when you come around to the side of the car to pop the seats back up, there's no faffing about and trickery. You can literally just with one hand put them back up and the seat belts stay out of the way. So I can do that without any fuss at all, and I can even reach in and do this one, and they're both back in just like that. Super nice to live with. So top marks, really practical and easy to use space. Obviously it's not massive, but it is a very small car, and I think they make the best of the shape of the car. So I think this is actually a really nice cargo area. So with that being said, let's close her up then and get her out on the road. First of all, I want to give you a few revs to see what you think of the exhaust on this car. Right, manual handbrake off then. I'm in the sport mode and I've changed the traction control to sport on the screen. Hard on the brake, hard on the throttle, launch control active, let the boost build. Let's see what it does. Not bad, all things considered, really. Considering it's very wet out here, that did a pretty good job of it, to be honest. There was a little bit of wheel hop, as you probably heard, but actually, not too bad at all. I'm quite impressed with that. I'm going to leave the traction control in the sport mode just so it doesn't cut the power too much in these rainy conditions. But what you will notice is that I'm currently in the slightly harsher sport setting. So what I will do is I'm going to go down into drive, and I'm going to change my drive mode into the normal mode, because what that will do is it will calm things down. It will make the suspension less firm because it's got dynamic chassis control as standard, and it just makes things a little bit more pleasant to live with day to day, which I think is really nice. Now, cruising along in this car, it's actually a lot more plush than you might expect for a hot hatch, and I use that term because I think this is more of a warm hatch in my consideration. It's definitely not as hot as something like an i20N or a Fiesta ST, which obviously has now been discontinued. So this is still a viable option. You can still buy one of these new. But the one thing I would say is that it might not tickle your fancy if you're looking for something really hardcore. But cruising along in this car, I'm achieving more than 40 mpg currently, and it's relatively comfortable. I think these seats are fantastic. They provide, for me, just the right level of support, and you've got the lumbar adjustment as well, which makes them a little bit more firm if you need them to be. Plus the headrest is quite plush, and it's set back in such a way that I can really sink into the seat and make use of these side bolsters, which is nice when you're throwing the car around. But it's really settled for your day-to-day driving. The only thing I would say is that when you're going along at this sort of speed, I'm currently at about 50 mile an hour, if I was to kind of like go for an overtake and that kind of thing, the car does feel a bit floaty. You do get that kind of vagueness from the steering that you come to expect from Volkswagen Audi Group cars on the MQB platform. But I think it's accentuated a little bit here because the car is relatively light. That sort of 1300 kilo curb weight means that, yes, this is so agile in comparison to like your modern EVs, but it also means that it does feel a little bit floppy in certain situations in the comfier settings. This engine we've come to know and love as a bit of a peach. The EA888, it's famous and has been used in Volkswagen Audi Group cars for 10 plus years now, 15 years even, and it's a very tunable engine, known to be relatively reliable, very well known in terms of kind of modding capability, and also just people know how to service these things now because they're so common amongst Volkswagen Audi Group cars. And in this variant with this amount of power, it's quite peppy. It's just not as responsive as something like a Golf R, for example, which uses this same engine, or an S3 where they have a much larger turbo. Gear shifts while pulling along though are super smooth. The thing I would say is if I then bang it into the sport mode, I'm going to change the suspension and the main setting into sport as well. I feel everything get firmer immediately. Steering feel firms up a little bit, which is nice, and I can feel a lot more of the road now, so I can feel some more texture, and the car certainly feels like it's a little bit less susceptible to roll. But there's definitely not quite as much response from this as you would get from something like an i20N, an i30N, or even a Golf GTI is more agile than this, even though it's a larger car. This just feels a little bit softer in comparison. But in this sport mode, it hangs the gears, maybe a little bit too much in fairness, but kick down is a lot more responsive. Something that is a real shame is you don't get those DSG farts. Thanks to all the filters on the exhaust on these newer cars, you don't really get that engagement. So the paddles are lovely to use, you can hear that sort of fake engine noise filtered in as well. Very immediate responses, and I don't get much kind of kick from the gearbox. It's kind of tuned to be quite smooth even when you're really banging through the gears. But yeah, the exhaust isn't tuned for like overrun and pops and crackles and all that kind of thing that you still get on some cars like the i20N and the i30M, for example. But I'm sure with the right exhaust tweakery, you could definitely achieve that. And I think that's the whole point in a hot hatch. You need a bit of drama, you need a bit of attitude. Right, sportiest mode here. Let's take over the gears. Let's go down into sport mode on the gearbox as well. I'm coming up to a roundabout now. Now, obviously being front wheel drive, you can't throw this in too hard, but something you do have to consider is that XDS electronic torque vectoring system on the front end. Even in the wet, it does kind of know what to do. It grips up and it goes, and you probably saw me fighting it a little bit then, but the car didn't want to break loose at the back. I was just kind of fighting the front to go where I wanted it to go, and you get a bit of torque steer even with the traction control on, which is good fun and puts a smile on your face whilst not being too dangerous. And it is sort of the right amount of power as well, I think. Like, it's not too quick, if that makes sense. I mean, you look at like all these new EVs, and the thing is they're so heavy. It takes a lot to stop them. It takes a lot to maneuver them. They're not as agile. And also they've got monstrous power figures, and you only have to tickle the throttle when you're warped into another dimension. Whereas something like this, you do have to wring it out a little bit to get the best out of it. And I do really enjoy that. Of course, being a Polo, the refinement isn't phenomenal in here. You'll notice there's a lot of crashing going on because I'm in the firm suspension setting at the moment. And like I said, it does really soften up if you want it to. But definitely a little bit of wind noise, a little bit of road noise, not quite as insulated as you might hope, but that's kind of par for the course with a smaller hatchback. You can have some real good fun with it. It's a nice peppy, talky little engine, and that gearbox is so responsive. Just a shame that those gear shifts aren't a little bit kind of more brutal. Just in this sport mode though, I wouldn't want that day to day, but it would just be nice to have that in this mode. Go down into first gear here. I do have quite a lot of confidence. It's just a shame there's just not more feel to the chassis. It's like, it's okay, but it's just not hot hatch levels of fun like an i20M, for example. It's not a patch on a Civic Type R, but that is crazy money in comparison to this. You know, they're like sort of 50 grand plus now. So that's like a massive jump in price. And then obviously if you're a purist, you probably want something like a Yaris GR homologation special, so that you've got a manual gearbox and the four-wheel drive that you can mess around with. Just trying to get a little bit of exterior noise for you here. And it certainly handles a lot better than a lot of other front-wheel drive cars I've tested too. The brakes are pretty reassuring too. They're not too firm under the foot, but you certainly get a decent response for them on this car, and I haven't felt them letting me down at any point during this drive. It's just a shame there's not that little bit more texture through the wheel, and it's just a shame there's not that extra touch of ASBO, like the pops and crackles from the exhaust that we've come to know on some of their older hot hatches. But what is nice is that you can then just put it into your, your normal comfort mode, and it becomes a lot more civilized for a day-to-day drive. They're a dying breed, these hot hatches, and it's a real shame. And it's also a shame that the ones that are left are kind of a little bit compromised. I mean, the fact that you've got to pay extra for some of the basic equipment in this compared to rivals, and the fact that really you're not getting the same level of tech as you are in some of the Koreans and so on. But then if you get something a little bit more hardcore and more sort of firm, you're going to be giving up some of the daily driver capabilities that this car has. And that, I guess, is where really the Fiesta ST came in, because that was probably the best at being both. I guess the similarly priced JCW Mini suffers the same fate really. It's just not quite as hot as they used to be. I reckon with the right ECU and gearbox tune and a spicy exhaust, this would really come alive. But I'm just talking about the stock product here, and it's just not quite up there with something like an i20N and a Bath 595. Those sort of cars that light your arse on fire every time you get in them. This isn't that, but I suppose it's not necessarily the target market either. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, that does sound like an ideal middle ground, then it might be time to go and test drive one and see what you think. And let's be honest, I think it's probably about time that we all snap up the combustion engine hot hatches before it's too late. So there we go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to Volkswagen for sending me out the car. I really do appreciate it. And thank you guys for likes, comments and subscriptions. It means the world. You don't even know how much it helps to hit that subscribe button, so please do. And if you're looking for a used car, whether it be one of these or something else, then do check out Players Cars Premium in the description below, where you can find all the best finance deals on used cars and get a nice, easy experience sourcing your next vehicle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.